Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Select Board, Monday, November 13th, 2023. Wake Up Meeting Room, Mashpee Town Hall, 16 Great Neck Road North, Mashpee, Mass. 02649. Broadcast live on the cable channel 8. Stream live on the Town Mashpee website. And I'd like to convene the meeting at 6:31 in open session. And let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I also have a moment of silence, please? Thank you. Thank you. First up, we have approval of Monday, August 21st, 2023, executive session.
I have a question on the executive session minutes. I would like to postpone those. There was something that was left out, and I know Michaela and David approved the draft, but I want to have it checked one more time. Thank you. So I'll make a motion to approve regular session minutes for September 26th, October 2nd, October 12th, October 15th, October 24th, and our special meeting, October 30th.
So excluding
Regular minutes.
all regular
Yes.
meetings,
For those
not executive session minutes?
Nope.
Regular, I'll approve it, I'll second that, regular session.
Excluding executive session, just so we're clear, so excluding executive session September 26th
August 21st and
and
September.
October 12th,
Yes.
correct?
If you did, if it's there October 12th, yes. No, I'm sorry. It's August 21st, September 22nd, 6th, and October 2nd, executive sessions. There was 3 executive sessions. There was a special meeting, which was for the voting.
All right, I just want to be very clear.
Just
so-
executive session minutes postponed.
All right, so it's executive session from August 21st.
September 26th,
Where do you see September?
right after it says executive session, August 21st.
Oh, okay, so that's regular and executive, so but we're excluding the executive session part.
Yes.
Okay,
And October 2nd, executive session.
okay.
Okay, got it.
So there's a motion to approve the regular minutes and special meeting minutes.
I'll
That's a
second
first,
that.
and that's a
stated.
second. Okay. So I have a first and a second. Any discussion? Not hearing any. Michaela?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
And David?
Yes.
Sorry, was that yes?
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Dave. All right, so to discuss executive session, I'm assuming we'd have to set up a meeting to discuss that,
Yes.
the next hearing, next
Thank
meeting. Okay, first up, appointments and hearings, Town Planner, Evan Lahare, update on RFQ for FY 2024 Community Development Block Grant, Competitive Grant Application for the Housing Rehab Program with Program Monitoring and Administration. Good evening.
I would say my memo is generally self-explanatory, but just for, I suppose, a reminder to anyone who's not paying attention at home, the Select Board had asked that staff seek consultant assistance for preparation of an application to the FY 2024 Community Development Block Grant Program, specifically for a housing rehab program to assist with low, moderate income homeowners and renters, connect to the sewer service, the wastewater treatment collection system, subsequent to the completion of phase 1. The my staff and I advertised an RFQ for that purpose at the end of the summer. I held it open for 1 month. It was provided to the consultants identified in the memo, and we did not receive any responses, other than responses from the consultants upon receipt of the invitation to bid. Other than receipt of emails from the consultants notifying us that due to their existing workload and commitments to other municipalities for similar preparations, that they wouldn't be able to provide a response to the RFQ. Through that process, one additional consultant was identified to me by a colleague from Barrett Planning Group, and that consultant has been contacted and asked of her interest to participate if we were to reopen the RFQ, but I have not yet received a response from that consultant. So that is the update, and I'd be more than happy to answer questions.
Anybody from the board have any questions?
I
Okay.
do. So I know that we were able to do this as of July 1, that's when the funding was approved. When did the RFQ go out, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't specifically remember, Selectwoman Colombo. I want to say the end of August through the end of September, but I would have to confirm those dates.
Thank you. And my other question is, if at this late date we can't find somebody, is there a way to work on this grant in-house?
My department is very limited in its capacity to achieve a successful grant application.
Okay. Hopefully we'll hear from this person, and hopefully she'll be interested. Thank you.
Any other recommendations or?
We can continue to try to see consultant participation. However, again, I think the responses are relatively self-explanatory. I think the reality is many of these consultants maintain ongoing relationships with municipalities who have ongoing CDBG programs and have, essentially a program of applications that they anticipate submitting years in advance. And so I think that's our number one limitation. And also there are limited numbers of consultants who perform this kind of work. So I would love it if my department had additional capacity to achieve what I think would be a fundable grant application. But given the scope of work we have to accomplish within the next year, I don't think it a possibility.
May I ask a follow-up?
Sure.
One of the things that I do know about grant applications and grant writing is if you establish a relationship with the funder via any kind of application, you're in better shape to be funded at the next cycle.
Sure.
I would be willing, as a resident, to volunteer my time to help with a grant if your office would have time to do that, because I think it would at least establish us with the funding agency. It's a lot of money, and it's money that could be used to help people who really need help. So I just want to, maybe we could, with the town manager's permission, talk offline.
Are you suggesting like right at immediately or time frame wise, sort of just
No,
working on?
offline, yeah.
Okay.
No,
All
no.
right.
I mean, I think we'd get into too many specifics that aren't important.
Okay,
And again,
that's much appreciated. That can work out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Evan. And by the way, congratulations
Thank you.
officially. Discussion and certification of the hiring process and confirmation of the wastewater superintendent, Jared Meter.
Yes, Mr. Meter is not here this evening, but I seek the board's confirmation as well as certification. Because this is a department head, the board has got to confirm the appointment. I can tell you that there was a panel of individuals who reviewed this individual for the purposes of examining his knowledge, his skills, his ability, his experience, his training. They looked at whether or not he can perform the essential functions of the job. On the board was the HR Director, Kim Landry, DPW Director, Catherine Laurent, Water District Superintendent Andy Marks, and former Selectman Andy Gottlieb. The recommendation came to me as the appointing authority, and I am here to seek confirmation. Mr. Meter is a U.S. Marine veteran, leaving the service as a Staff Sergeant E6. He had 2 Iraq deployments, and his background consists of being an Oak Bluffs wastewater treatment facility operator, and most recently, the Tisbury wastewater superintendent. So I recommend him for confirmation in the most emphatic way. I believe this gentleman is excited about shortening his daily commute, because he is currently on a daily basis going to the vineyard.
Well, good. Motion to approve the certification.
And this would be certification and confirmation, not just certification of the process to adhere to all of the policies and procedures, but the board would be taking a vote to confirm this appointment.
I'll
A motion.
second that motion.
I haven't said it yet. I haven't said it yet. A motion
Oh, I
to,
thought you did, I'm sorry.
a motion to certify the hiring process and confirmation of the wastewater superintendent, Jared Meter.
And I will second that.
I will say, obviously, I'm very excited to meet him and so we can, get down to work. Disappointed that not able to meet him today, but.
Well, everything has timing, and, he's got a notice to serve out.
And again, if he's serving on the island, I totally understand that it's not such an easy thing to get here, so. Any other discussion? If not?
I have a question.
Sure.
And thank you, and I value your recommendation. I wonder, one of the things I've been thinking about is, does Mr. Meter have experience with watershed permits? Did you talk with him about that? And does he have experience working with consultants such as GHD?
I know he's worked with some consultants because some of the people working with us are familiar with him. Whether or not he has experience specifically in watershed permitting or not, I can tell you, I didn't ask him that question. Whether or not the panel that I just cited asked him that question, I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Not hearing any? Michaela?
Sounds like a good panel, and yes.
Yes.
O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Whedon?
Yes.
And I'm an absolute yes. Welcome aboard if he's watching. All right.
We have
Do you
a
mind?
hearing.
Public hearing?
Want me to hear it? Okay, public hearing notice. The Mashpee Select Board will conduct a public hearing pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 90, Section 18, on a proposed change of the speed limit on Pondview Drive, County Drive, Dixon Drive, Holy Farm Drive, Winslow Drive, River Run, and Rainey's Circle to 20 miles per hour. Said hearing will be held on Monday, November 13th, 2023 at 6:40 in the Warpoint Meeting Room at Mashpee Town Hall, 16 Great Neck Road North, Mashpee. Residents are invited to attend the hearing or email their questions and comments in advance to the BOS@mashpeema.gov.
All right. Who is,
I see the petitioners.
I see them
here.
sitting there.
Yeah.
He is. Do you want to see?
Good evening.
you can come up together too if you,
Good evening. We're trying to set a speed limit in there, which it doesn't have one in there. People drive the way they want to drive.
so there's not even a speed limit sign,
Nothing.
nothing around?
Nope.
Well, we'll
So
take
if I
care of
could,
that.
Mr. Chair, because this is a private way, the statute that governs this is Chapter 90, Section 18 of Mass General Laws. So essentially, what these folks have done is petition the board, and the board, under the general law that I just cited, has the authority to establish that speed limit. And again, all of the provisions are in that statute. But I asked the gentleman when he visited my office whether or not he would be willing to essentially pass around this petition and get the folks that live on the respectful roads to sign it, and he did. So he came back, and that is the petition that's before you. And I don't know if you had anybody objecting.
No.
No, there wasn't anybody on the road. So because he has done his due diligence and homework, and he has widespread support, and the problem has been articulated, and you do have the authority, unless there's a public hearing objection, I see no reason for the board not to act.
Okay, from your point of view, that's, is there anybody here that objects to this? That makes it real easy.
I live on a highway. Just as one,
Do you mind just?
not at all.
Mrs.
Connie Baker, I live on 6 Renee's Circle. Just as a point of reference, if anybody doesn't know that area, that's County Road. And County Road cuts through Old Barnstable Road out to 151. So the children who are semi-late to school like to come through there. And some of our worst offenders, I hate to say it, are UPS, Amazon, and FedEx guys. There is
Just close to the microphone, if
Travis,
you don't mind.
there's no posted limit, so nobody adheres to anything in there. And it's an area where children are there, elder folks like us, walking the area with dogs. So we would greatly appreciate the consideration to have some posted speed limits in there, and maybe an officer to try to enforce it once or twice, so people might share that we have speed limits in there.
Well, that's also on Holly Farm, because they cut through from
Yeah.
Old Barnstable down to one.
Holly Farms as well, they come through, so.
It's Holly Farm and Coney are the two major cut-through roads.
Thank you, Connie.
thank you.
And the only thing I would add is they were very organized, and they were very passionate when they came to visit, and they just wanted to know how to do it. It was explained. They put all the time and effort into the petition that's before you. Again, there doesn't appear to be any objection, and it was a posted public hearing, so I respectfully ask the board to approve it.
I have a motion to approve.
A motion to
Once
close,
the public hearing is closed.
motion
that's
to
good.
close the public hearing?
I'll make a
a
motion
second?
to approve.
No,
Do I have a
close the
second to
public
close the
hearing.
public hearing?
Oh, second, yes, yes.
Okay.
Take
Yes.
the vote.
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Yes.
Carol? David? Just to close the public hearing.
Yes.
Okay, now a motion to post the change of a speed, well, post a speed limit on Pondview, County Road, Dixon Drive, Holly Farm, Winslow Drive, River Run, Rainy Circle to 20 miles per hour.
I'll second that motion.
First and the second. Any discussion? Michaela?
Yes.
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Carol? David?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. All set.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Well done, Joyce. Well done.
Want me to read the next hearing?
Yes, please.
I'll wait till they leave. Now that it's speed limit signs.
I don't know. That's, he'll deal with it. All right, so it's 6:50. We have a tax classification hearing.
Under Chapter 40, Section 56, as amended by Chapter 369 of the Acts of the 1982 and Chapter 79 of the Acts of 1983, the Mashpee Select Board will conduct a public hearing on whether the town of Mashpee should implement the Classification Act. At said hearing, the Mashpee Select Board will hear testimony as to what will be the fiscal year 2024 residential factor, which will determine the share of taxes each classification of property will pay, what will be open space factor, and whether there will be a residential exemption and/or small business exemption. Said public hearing will be conducted on Monday, November 13th, 2023, at 6:45 p.m. in the walkway meeting room at Mashpee Town Hall, 16 Great Neck Road North, Mashpee, Mass.
All right, you want to start us off?
Good evening. Paul
Good
Andrews
evening.
from the Board of Assessors.
Joe Gibbons, Director of Assessing. Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for coming in today.
You're welcome. This is our annual meeting, tax classification hearing, which is held in all municipalities within the Commonwealth of Massachusetts prior to the assessors in that locale being able to set the tax rate. The questions before the Select Board tonight were eloquently presented by Ms. Sherman. We have 4 questions, and we have a sample motion at the end for the Select Board to put forth. At this time, I'd like to start by basically saying to the public and everyone out there, this basically puts a bow tie on fiscal '23, which ended on June 30th. All the data that goes into these sheets that go into the Department of Revenue are reviewed. We've had our values approved for this year. It wasn't a complete reval year, but it was an interim year. We saw in calendar year '22, which is the data we used for fiscal '24, which is the tax rate that hopefully will be set next month. We saw continued increases in real estate values locally. Single families went up 15.7%. Condos went up 12.7%. In comparison to last year was 21% roughly for singles and condos. So the appreciation is not as much, but it is still substantial.
Still quite.
Double-digit increases. And if you look in your packet, there's a sheet that shows the average value. We're now, last year, we were at the single families averaged $770,000. This year, it's now $899,503. So we're a hair under $900,000 for the averaged single-family assessed value in Mashpee. It is really getting, as you know, costly to live in this area. To look at that and see that we're basically $900,000, but yet we still have, relative to other communities statewide, we have a relatively low tax rate, contrary to what some people would say.
I agree.
When we look at our tax rate compared to the other 351 communities in the Commonwealth, our tax rate is still relatively on the lower side. No one likes to hear that, but
I'm glad you stated that because
and assessors are never, advocates for higher taxes because it makes our job harder, but we're on the lower side statewide. Okay, so back to where I was. So tonight, we're not going to set a tax rate tonight. Assessors set tax rates, and they're approved by the Department of Revenue, the Bureau of Local Accounts in Boston, once everything is submitted. But what we are going to present are proposed estimated rates based on the data that we have. And everyone should keep that in mind, that they're proposed. And selectmen don't set tax rates. They do, however, make the decisions on the 4 questions that we have tonight, and 3 of which typically are not of great relativity to Mashpee. The major question that we have here every year is the residential exemption question,
Right.
which we adopted last year at 5%.
We will discuss that after we adopt this, correct? That's after.
Yeah,
That's,
if you want to break them up, sure, yeah. I mean,
well, according to our,
yeah,
agenda, it's because we adopt, say if we adopt the factor of 1,
yeah,
and then it's residential exemption, we can discuss that afterwards,
Yeah.
correct?
right. Historically, you've wisely, on the first 3 bullets, went with what our sample motion is, and so if we
Yep.
want to cut to the real meat and potatoes, we can get through that motion real quick.
Does anybody have any questions about changing tax rate as far as shifting the burden from commercial? We talked about this, previous years. There's not a whole lot if you shift the burden and the whole thing. I don't have any interest in changing any of the 1, 2, and 3, and none of this is discussing the tax exemption itself. So if anybody, does anybody have any?
It has nothing to do with the ladder, of how we're gonna do it. But I'm concerned, and I think we all are, the cost of living on Cape Cod is going up extremely fast, especially in Mashpee. Mashpee is the place to be now, as far as I'm concerned. And I said, a lot of people have valuable homes now, but they don't have big incomes. And I think it's gonna be a very difficult time making the ends meet. I wish we could find another way to raise revenue or fees to offset or be paid by others and not some of the year-round residents here, because I think they're no longer working, they're retired for the most part. Many, not to mention families with children. I don't know how they do it.
I know.
Really don't. I mean, and they're looking forward for their children's education. I mean, they don't give those away for nothing unless you're a very smart student. And I don't know, I know that's your job. I know your job is to find ways to, obtain revenue to offset the cost or to help offset the costs to the residents. And I'm sure you've done your job, but I find it, the numbers are going up very rapidly. Like you said, I'm over 8,000, and it's a big hit, all of a sudden. That was just recent. So. But I know you've done your job, your due diligence, but I wish there was another way. And I don't know what way that is.
You want me to read a motion?
Yeah,
If we all agree? Okay, I move that the town of Mashpee adopt a factor of 1 for all classes of property with no discount for open space, no small commercial exemption, and a residential exemption.
You could actually cut it off, right, the no.
Open space.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Of open space and commercial.
And cut it off there.
Yeah. It's no small commercial, yeah. Perfect. Right, no small commercial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my motion.
That's a motion. Do I have a second? This is just we're not talking about the exemption
It's
yet.
not the
We're gonna
exemption.
Right.
This is just for the factor of 1.
How did that motion end? I didn't hear the end of it, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
I move the town of Mashpee adopt a factor of 1 for all the classes of property with no discount for open space and no small commercial.
I second.
All right, so I have a first and a second. Any discussion? Not hearing any? Michaela?
Yes.
Tom?
No.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mr. Whedon?
Yes.
All right. All right, so now, motion passes 4-1. And if you want to jump into what we probably all here today to talk about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to start off?
Yeah,
Residential
sure.
exemption, please.
I'd just like everybody to look out the most recent handout that was not in the original packet that I just disseminated.
Right here.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
similar to what.
This basically gives a comparison between last year and this year for the average Mashpee single-family homeowner. Last year, with a 5% residential exemption, their tax bill was $5,400.47. And on the printout here, we have all the options, 0 to 35%, and it shows the percentage increase and what the corresponding tax rates would be. For instance, if you chose to keep the 5% residential exemption, last year your tax bill was $5,400. This year it would be $5,648.88, basically a $250 increase if we kept the 5% residential exemption.
Okay, just to clarify again, if we keep the exemption the way it is at 5%, the increase
It's 200.
would be $250 this year alone on that average single family of $770,000 value.
$899 now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
$770 was last year.
Because the
That's
values
right,
jumped
okay.
up so high, you're only getting a $250 increase.
Right.
Right,
Right.
okay. I'm sorry. Thanks for the clarification. Okay,
And that tax rate would be $6.28 if we kept things similar to we had last year. That would show a 4.6% increase. And that would be similar to last year, because last year what we had, let's say, a 21% increase in values, but the tax rate came down 15%. So this year at 5%, you're looking at a 15% increase in value and a tax rate coming down 10%. So it keeps coming back to about a 5% increase in the average person's property tax bill. But that's staying level at 5%. And I have all the other options on that chart, showing what the percentage and how much the increase would be for that one house that's $900,000, let's say.
Right.
And when you're looking at eyeballing, let's say, higher percentages, right, because of trying to relieve some of the tax burden for our year-round residents, there's a bigger picture that we always have to keep an eye on from the assessor's standpoint, which is first the overlay. Now, we did increase the overlay. It's more robust. I think it's around, what, 850, 900,000?
I think it's 850 now.
Somewhere in
for
there.
this year, yeah.
And that overlay protects us in case there's, abatements, exemptions, other things that come down during the fiscal year. But if you look at, I guess it's a cautionary tale. If you increase dramatically the residential exemption to try to mitigate some of the tax burden, you are exposing the town to potentially huge dollars of overlay based on the amount of potential exposure. We have about 2,400 and change as far as residential exemption applications that were approved. But we look at a total exposure, it could be up to 5,000-ish residential exemption applications that could be in total. So we have potentially another 2,500 applications that could actually qualify. If, let's just say, 1,000 applications, based on the average single-family home going up so high, it could be more attractive to someone to pursue their residential exemption, as well as people knowing about it, because now it's, we're over, a year in. 1,000 more applications at, let's say, 30%, that we've projected around a $1.5 million exposure to the overlay. So we would wipe it out, plus we couldn't actually sustain it, which would clearly...
You'd have to have budget cuts.
In town meetings, and, it would kind of have the opposite effect, in a sense, because we'd be looking for the money to make up. So I guess, again, it's just a caution of trying to go too much too quickly, and not allowing for that ramp-up time if you're looking for a higher percentage.
In your packet, there's a printout. This one's color, but I believe yours is black and white.
Trying to
But
save money.
Yeah. It shows this, we have 2,476 people approved and vetted applications for the setting of the tax rate for fiscal '24. But as we know, if and when the residential exemption is voted tonight, people can come in starting tomorrow until April 1st and apply and get that. And those monies come out of a different bucket than these 2,476. They come out of the overlay bucket between now and April 1st. And there's no way of judging how many people are going to show up. But talking to, DOR statisticians, if we triple or quadruple or 5 times over the residential exemption, we are going to get more applicants than if we keep it at 5%.
Right, exactly. I see what you're saying.
That's
Wow.
an issue, a potential issue that we would not be doing our job if we did not communicate this to the public and to the Board of Selectmen, or Select Board, sorry.
So you are saying, so you have 2,476 that are filed under the residential exemption
And accepted.
as of when?
1st of November.
Yeah, November 1st.
All right, so pretty recently.
Yeah.
And those all filed, they all would have had to file once we voted in the 5%. So 2,400. So what's your, I know it's so hard because what do you anticipate?
Well, here's what I can give you some facts from last year. After the Select Board approved the 5% residential exemption last year, between November and April 1st, we had 325 people come in and be approved. But that was at a 5% residential exemption in our first year. Now we know there's people out there that know about it and some that don't. But we do know some people that know about it and still don't file.
Right.
But some of those folks may, if you triple this or quadruple this and go from $200 to $1,000 or $1,500, I'd be willing to suggest that you're going to get a considerably bigger number of people come out for this. That's something that you have to keep in the back of your mind.
Well, those are the people we work for.
Say that again, Tom?
I said, those are the people we work for.
Yeah, you work for all of them, for sure.
I work for the
It's-
taxpayers.
Yep.
Again, it's a cautionary tale of ramping up if you're looking at higher percentages for more tax relief is maybe incrementally be a better idea.
I think with what we're facing down the road, I think doing it, like you say, leaving it at 5%, we're still doing well. I mean, the people are still, everything went up and everything's going up, but we're keeping the tax rate at 6.28. We're keeping it at that level. And then maybe next year, look at it again, and, because we're still not seeing the burden of the wastewater yet on our taxes. We're just
Right.
seeing the burden of our values going up. So I think.
And then
I
you're
think
chasing the value curve up, right?
Exactly.
When-
So
If
I
and when
think-
the cyclical real estate market
Right.
happens.
When it does, when we are going to see the burden of the wastewater on our taxes, I think that's when we need to really look at the exemption again.
And
Because
we're
that's
always,
when the
yeah.
residents are going to need it.
And we're always 2 years behind in values, right? Because we
Right.
need to set the tax rate by the 1st, but we need a full year, so it's always 2 years behind. So people, that's when taxpayers don't understand. My Zillow says my house is worth $200,000 less.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, 2 years ago it wasn't, and that's what the tax rate set on
That's
today. So I think it's wise to have, that approach that,
Right.
maybe the payoff will be
values
when.
will be down.
Yeah.
And our taxes will be a little higher because of the wastewater coming into play.
Right. Right. It is that.
That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah.
And, and what I hear is, though I listen to the radio and I listen to the talk shows and there's a lot of talk about a recession, the price of the property is gonna drop. Things are not going easy. So now we're burdening the homeowners with the cost of all that we're doing across the board. But yet, the fact of the matter is, we could have a drop in the value of properties in Mashpee and all the towns around here, all the towns. So, and that's what I've been hearing. I mean, it's not anything I'm making up. Whether it happens or not, whether it's guesswork, I don't know. But
I like
those are my
leaving it at-
concerns.
I like leaving it at the 5%.
Mr. Chair. I have several questions. First of all, I'd like to thank you for being so comprehensive in breaking this down into a 5% exemption, 10%, 15, 20, and 35. So I really appreciate having
You're
these
welcome.
figures. I have a question that is slightly different, and I just don't know the answer to this question. I'm wondering if there might not be a way to cap a reduction value so that as we look at the residential exemption, it's one of the few things that we can actually do to help people who are really struggling and to help people who have homes that are valued somewhere below the average. Typically, and I know there are outliers, but typically people who have lower valued homes have lower incomes than people who have upper value homes, right? So I'm wondering, as I'm looking at all of these figures that you have graciously provided for us, we're looking at extending the exemption up to properties that are valued at like 3.4 something million dollars. So I'm asking so I can get clarification. Is there a way to cap where we give a residential exemption so that we're helping people who truly need the help rather than, not that we don't all want, a break on our taxes. I'm sure everybody does. But it seems as though our concern is more for people who have homes that are valued at $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 who we want to be able to live here. It's one of the few things we can do to address the housing crisis. So
The current statute does not allow for that.
Thank you.
It's state-driven, and the current statute doesn't allow for that.
So by Massachusetts state law,
Right.
this is the way it's done, and there's no way for a municipality to adjust that.
Correct.
Okay, I appreciate that.
There is a new thing called a senior means-tested exemption, which is similar, that Hingham and Reading were the first two communities to adopt. It's relatively new, but that's
for seniors.
that's limited to seniors, and it's means-tested. So that gets at a little bit of your, but it's just a segment.
Thank you.
It's the seniors. And from what the people I talk to in this profession, in real estate, the people trying to get into the market are really struggling. And that would only help the senior, you know, the,
I understand. As I said, I think in looking at the tax exemption, it's one of the few things that we actually have control over to help people to stay in homes, people of more modest means, working families, to be able to give them that break. Just as I'm looking at this, I think one of the things that's really important, and I'm looking at assuming a 10% exemption, we're actually looking at giving a tax break of $458 to somebody who owns a home between $200,000 and $300,000. Somebody who is non-residential, who owns the same home, is only going to have to pay $33 more a year. So when I look at those values at the costs at the lower home values, it's significant to me, the real break that people up into that $800,000 are getting, and the small amount that people are paying who are at the same
I would
same home
agree,
value.
but Michaela, one thing we have to be cognizant of is that's with only 2,476 people.
I understand that. If I may.
When those
that-
numbers will change drastically if we get 500 or 1,000 more people or 1,500, which they're out there, but they just haven't filed.
But with all due respect, this was a conversation we had last year about the 5% exemption, and the sky didn't fall.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think, you know, Joe, to your point, I don't know if anybody else, I don't speak for myself, I wasn't considering 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. I think that was, you know, a little crazy for today's discussion, but that's my only opinion. I think for this discussion, unless the board tells me something different, I'm curious about, you know, the pros and cons as far as leaving the tax exemption, resident exemption as 5% or moving it to 10%. So I would kind of focus the meeting, if everyone's good with that and the rest of the board, is just kind of have a discussion of leave it the same or move it to 10%.
I will say, Paul can speak to this, but the Board of Assessors voted at their meeting to make a recommendation.
Yeah, so ours was,
And if you-
no more than 15%,
Would be the highest that they would recommend.
and 15% was on the high end. Again, when we look at the potential, we have to look at that, right? The potential applications that could show up versus how much we have in overlay. There is, to me, there's a significant risk there. So that risk management would be mitigated by not going too aggressive on your percentages. So 10% would certainly be in line with what the Board of Assessors had thought would be palatable, for sure.
Isn't it, am I understanding correctly, isn't Barnstable at like 20 or even higher?
20.
Yeah, but
They were
they've had it for a while, so,
Right,
you know.
they went,
That's
I
the
think they
big
went 0 to 20,
Yeah.
from my understanding.
And their makeup is a little bit
Until
different.
this is established, and my talks with the Department of Revenue, different statisticians and professionals at the Department of Revenue, until it's established, meaning we've had this in effect consistently for at least 5+ years, okay, they say you should tread lightly.
Case in point, I told you, it's, again, we're talking, leave it the same or potentially go to 10%. I think that's where I think that's tread lightly.
Mr. Chair, can I?
Yes, Mr. Wheaton, all yours.
You know, there's several questions that come to mind. I can't hear all the folks speaking that well, so I would ask if folks to speak directly into the mic. I'm having a little trouble with some. The question that I have, and I don't know if Michaela touched on this, but when we first asked, back when Andrew was on the board, and we had asked Jason to come forward with this information in consideration of the tax exemption, residential exemption, there was a cutoff of $700,000 based on median household value at that time. And now, if you look at the chart that was provided that shows the pre-qualified residential exemption applicants, you have a parcel count. You have a parcel count by class of 1,664 homes that are valued at over the lower threshold of 400,000, which is down at 784. And so, if you were to cap this based on the 2023 $700,000 rate average value, that number was on the town of this historical town of Mashpee new growth is historical. That reflects in 2023 the value. No, that's not tax value. Wrong sheet. The town of Mashpee single-family home values, big class 101. That one shows the average cost of a home in 2023 at $770,395, and that, if you capped it off at that, you would minimize your exposure for people applying in any given year, almost in half. On that 1,664 people.
Can I just address that?
Yeah, we just talked about that though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, David, you're talking about capping it off at value, you can't do that. You probably didn't hear it, but they just said it very clearly that you cannot.
It's
cap it.
unconstitutional.
By statute, unfortunately, David, can't.
Just in case you
I'd
can't.
like to get more familiar with the statute myself, just because of lack of understanding. I like to read over stuff to know what the parameters are. Because, I mean, it was when Jason was still here, that was how it was presented, that we could cap it. So I don't know what changed between now and then.
That might have been a miscommunication, because that wasn't what I recall. But if you wanted to come to our next assessors meeting, we can have a meaningful discussion to kind of give you that exposure of what you can, are unable to by statute, for sure, if that would help.
Because at the end of the day, what these numbers are reflecting, like what I see here, this is gentrification. I mean, by any standards, you have that sheet, you have that one sheet that's showing the values jumping up, and since 2015, they've gone up to, they both doubled under the class 101 sheet. Those values have essentially doubled from 445,000 in 2014 to now we're in 2024. We expect the value to be at 899,000 for a house in Mashpee.
Yep.
That's gentrification. Our homes are being driven out based on the value cost of an average house. That is really an issue for me. And when you see the other chart that's reflecting that, you have the people that are over a $400,000 house. You have more of them applying than the combined total of all the lower income people. That's troublesome. I don't understand. It's the rich are taking advantage of this more than the people that really need it. There's a problem with that. And exactly how to address it, I'm not sure. The target group that we were trying to help was the people that need it the most. The people that struggle, the people that can't afford to live here, the people that have lived here for a long time and withstood the cost of living going up and up. That's, socioeconomic impacts that aren't within our means to control. They're the ones we're trying to help.
I get it. Right, yeah, guys.
It's just for us, it's just math. It's just numbers. Like what you said, David, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying from an assessor standpoint, it's a limitation of what we can do or what you can ask us to do by statute, and then it's just numbers. It's just, these are the values that are coming in, fair market values. They're they are quite high compared to 2014 for sure. But we have to always consider, as I said at the beginning, the bigger picture, which is if you devastate the overlay, that's going to have a negative effect. It's going to be the reverse of what you're trying to do, because now the town will be looking to slash budgets and collect more money.
I think some of the issues, David, that you've brought up are excellent issues, okay? But they're not for us. I believe you really need to speak to the legislature, your legislators at the state level, to amend statutes or create new statutes to help folks. We're the messenger. In 10 years, you can look at this. The average value's doubled in Mashpee in 10 years.
That's what he just mentioned. Yeah, it is what it is. I mean, it's
Yeah,
not,
and it's not just Mashpee.
No,
Right.
everywhere.
It's regionally.
And you folks, the select board, you're trying to mitigate, things that are outside of our control. Some of these issues of, mortgage rates, inflation. I mean, all of this stuff that we're trying to sort of crisis control and help the citizens of Mashpee make it, as affordable as we can, right, Tom? But we're sort of stuck in that position where we're trying to give you as much information as we can so that you can make an educated decision that won't potentially have too much of a negative impact, but has a positive impact for the citizens. And Carol, really good point about, we haven't realized the full tax burden when it comes to wastewater. So some of this ramp up could actually work in your favor relative to keeping things at a little more
Right.
steady. And
Steady
yes,
now
they're
and then go up
climbing,
later.
but yeah.
But
And-
then everybody will get to a point where it will level out. You'll have most of the people take advantage of the 5%. And then you will see where we are. We've only done this for a year now.
Right.
And there's only how many people that have applied?
2,476
Right.
that have been approved.
Right, so if we leave it the way it is and they more apply because it's getting known, then we'll know the next time when we come back to you, when we do need to increase the percentage.
Sure.
I did want to inform everybody that there's a new piece of legislation was passed in October as part of municipal reform. The legislature passed and the governor signed it. The municipal finance officials haven't yet received the IGR on it, but it's a real estate tax exemption for landlords that rent
Year-round.
below the median rental.
to low income or lower
Or
moderate
affordable,
income.
at an affordable rate. It's part of the new municipal finance package that went through. The governor signed it in the first week in October. And we're just seeing what's coming out with that, but we don't have the detail yet on it. It's not eligible to be adopted by a town until the spring for fiscal *25. And until, like a lot of municipal finance, the devil's in the detail. So I have to see all the detail before I can, present it.
Now that you brought that up, what is the status of us offering the residential tax exemption to people that own a property and rent it year-round, and they can provide a lease like Provincetown offers?
Yes, that's called, they have it there, it's called the expanded residential exemption. We have the documents here.
Can we
Offer that?
offer that now?
That has to be, it takes a year to 2 years to get passed through the legislature, through your state rep's home rule petition. That's the only way right now that can be adopted.
Okay.
It's
So
not a state statute yet.
Can you assist with making that process, beginning that process?
Or does each individual
First of all, what I'm
have
going to
do it?
say is, I have the documents, I'll answer any questions, but my position, I am not an advocate. I am not a person who, in my position, can support something. or
Okay. No,
not support it, because it puts me in a tenuous position. But
Okay, so.
people on the
Chair,
Board of
if I
Assessors,
may?
If,
I don't know as far as the timelines, if this has to be done tonight, but, you know, looking over the information and listening to the discussion and stuff, like, I would suggest asking the Department of Revenue, you know, the overarching authority at the state level, have them send down a representative. You know, who's going to advocate for us? You know, like I said, I'm seeing gentrification happening right before our eyes. And that I'm not good with. I'm not comfortable going to constituents and telling them, you know, these are the numbers. It is what it is. And, you know, we have to just grin and bear it. I want to know, and if I have to advocate at the state level on their behalf, then I'm fine in doing that as a legislative body of the town to protect the people that need it the most. And so I would ask that we have them send down a representative and explain to us, maybe there's a creative solution that can be worked in. And if it's at a time where they're proposing new legislation, there's not a better time to get our concerns factored into the new legislation before it's ratified and affirmed through the legislative process. You know, this is a critical issue. From what I'm looking at, it's really troublesome. You know, home ownership is getting further and further out of reach of the lower class of incomes. That's not right. I don't want to see Mashpee turn into the Hamptons.
David, I want you to know I agree with you. I'm behind you with this.
Mr. Collins, you had something before?
yes, I'm not so sure that the Department of Revenue would be saying anything differently than the assessor. I think who we probably should invite would be the state representatives who represent Mashpee and forewarn them in terms of what the discussion will be. In regards to the expanded residential exemption, if the majority of the board wanted the town to pursue that, then I would work with town council to bring something for your consideration to the board. Obviously, it's not going to happen overnight.
Right.
But it would ultimately be something that the town could pursue at the will of the majority.
I just want to add one thing about the expanded residential exemption that I think's of importance to the public out there, is that exemption goes directly to the landlord.
Correct.
The tenant
I agree.
doesn't see
Right.
anything.
Yep.
All it does, in my opinion, is encourage the landlord to not Airbnb or to not do a short-term rental.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
You're absolutely correct.
And it's important.
Now,
That's- that
can
was
they
my whole-
apply for that now?
Not
no,
not
no,
Mashpee.
No.
No. So would you?
That's what
Right.
requires
That's
the
a
home
year
rule.
to 2 years down the line.
So, Mr. Collins, would you look for a motion, or would you just look for an acknowledgement to,
Well, I'd certainly like a consensus from the majority that that's what you want me to pursue.
does anybody on the board have any concerns or?
We're still in
um,
classification.
No,
here,
I
right?
do
Yeah,
think,
Yeah,
we're
they
talking
can't.
about two issues.
Just a point of
I
order.
think-
Point of order.
Sure.
Just a parliamentary person in me, sorry. Because we're still in classification here, you might want to put this on the agenda for your next meeting or
Right.
do it outside of the classification hearing.
Right.
Okay.
We do have
Yeah.
hearings.
Sorry to be a stickler, John.
No, that's
Okay,
perfect.
thank you.
Good call.
Yeah, and this wasn't being voted on tonight. This was just something for the purposes of a future reference.
Right. Well, you brought up the exemption, so it's
Yeah.
an exemption, so it's a modification to the exemption, which is
Yeah.
also on the agenda, so.
Yeah. It's good for discussion,
it's-
absolutely.
It's part of it's in there.
Yeah.
So we're back to topic at hand, which is 5%, or retaining the 5%, or do we consider moving it to potentially 10%?
My feeling is that I'd hold it at 5%. I know we need the money, I get it, but I think it's gonna hurt. The value of properties are going up anyway, so they're gonna go up to a
Speak into
certain.
the mic.
He's got to get the mic closer to him.
Well,
No one heard anything you said.
oh, sorry. Anyway, I said 5%, hold it at 5%. Let's not go up at this time. And if there's somewhere in between, I'm trying to protect the residents in the town, the young families, the older people. There's a lot of money here as well, but these are the things that I'm trying to protect, to help them stay in their homes, enjoy the rest of their time here. And maybe then it's time to move on, when it's going to keep going up. Like you said, the numbers are going up faster than I think any of us would have thought.
So just to clarify, if we're holding it the same,
Right.
there's going to be,
5%, right.
if we hold it at 5%, as you proposed,
Right.
it's going to cause a $250 increase.
Well,
Correct.
In the average, the
the
home that's
average for those low income that you're
$900,000,
talking about.
$899.
No,
It's
no,
gonna-
900,000.
To the 900,000, so it's a $250 increase in taxes.
Only a $250 increase. It kind
Right.
of keeps
Only
it from.
250. What
Yeah.
would it have been if it was
No, but he
left as
just,
is?
he was just talking about
Yeah.
not increasing and lowering, so I just
Yeah.
want to make sure you're
Right
clear
on.
on.
Yeah.
What you're looking for.
It's an increase, but that increase doesn't take into consideration the reduction in taxes. So you can say a $250 increase, but you're actually giving a reduction in the residential tax. So I find that to be misleading, to say it's a $250 increase, when you're actually looking at a reduction for somebody, as I said, for $458 is a whole lot of money to somebody who owns a house that's worth $200,000 to $300,000. They're getting the reduction. And that's, I think, what you want to protect.
Why,
So
and
if-
in between, I mean,
No,
there's
I
a lot of
understand.
people that have nice homes, but
Yep.
don't have a lot of money.
So even if you go down to $800,000, you're still looking at a $387 reduction. So I don't want us to get caught up in the $250 increase and not talk about the reduction, because I think that's confusing.
Right, and it's just, again, there's a reduction, and then we get the 5%, and we get the 10%. It just-
Exactly. So at 10%, those are the figures that work. At 10%, which I think is low, I would go to 15, but I'm not feeling that the board is feeling that way. But at 10%, you're looking at the difference of, for somebody at the lower scale, $458 savings a year, as compared to $226, which is what they're saving right now. And I think if somebody's struggling, that extra $200+ is a lot of money. Are you looking for a motion?
Mr. Chairman, it's a public hearing. John?
It is a public hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mary, you want to,
Yeah,
come on?
I don't want you to trip yourself up.
Quick.
You need to call
If you-
public comment before you, public hearing before you go take the vote. So, and I do have something to say, because I always do. Anyways, I do have a question for the assessing department. Hi, how are you? I'm Mary Wagon. I live at 35 of Schumett Road. So do residents need to reapply for the residential exemption?
Not necessarily. Most people do not.
Yeah, how do we know?
Yeah, I'm confused about that now.
People would have to reapply if the ownership of their property has changed. Meaning if they put if the property was in a trust, let's say, and you didn't qualify before, and now you transferred it to just Jane Doe, okay, you would then have to apply.
That's
Oh.
great, and I think that there should be a little bit of a public information campaign on that, because...
Excuse me, Mary, I did numerous, it was aired numerous times on Mashpee TV. I spoke with I forget the gentleman. Chris, yeah. Spoke with Chris, and we did a segment on the residential exemption, and we went on and on about, and he asked all different types of questions. Do you need to reapply again? The people that got it last year and their situation hasn't changed don't need to reapply.
That's great. I didn't know. It might be good to put it out as a news thing on the website, because actually that's where I go for a lot of my stuff about the town. I think it's, what I'm seeing is that, the higher the residential exemption, the bigger the tax relief, right? Yep. And I think that it's important to keep our legacy families here. In Mashpee is this residential exemption. And I also understand that it's something we want to ease into. And that the demand on this might increase as the sewering costs hit our tax bills. So what I'm encouraging is a gradual increase year to year. I agree with Select Board Member Michaela Colombo that it should be 15%, but I can see the reasons for keeping it a little bit lower at 10%. So that's what but it's you're increasing the tax break for people. And I do have to say that I did benefit from this myself, and we really did feel it. It was just under $300, and it was a good thing. And it is, as I go out and convince people to vote for sewering, it's really important to be able to talk about this, that this is what the town is doing to help give tax relief. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
You knew you were
It's a-
gonna- you
go
knew
ahead.
you were going to get me, right?
Time, though, right?
Well,
But you don't have a big written speech, that's a good thing.
all right, look, let me get going here. Okay, first off, a couple things. I wouldn't get all happy about the tax rate going down, because I really don't care what the tax rate is. I care what the number is when I write my check. So, I mean, our tax rate's been going down for years, but the amount I pay has been going up. So let's not get all, let's not start slapping ourselves on the back because the tax rate's going down. Let's get to the cut to the chase here. You can't look at these things in isolation, okay? I understand, everybody I think agrees that we want to protect our vulnerable folks from these tax increases that are coming our way. I sent you guys a letter this week. The tax increases that are coming our way in the next 5 to 7 years are going to be in the neighborhood of 20 to 25%. I mean, look, you don't have to be a whiz kid to figure this out. We're going to have the phase 1 and phase 2 is going to be $150,000 when you add it all up. Okay, the 66 and the 80. Okay, that only gets you 2,000 houses. You're not even halfway done. There's 7,000 houses. You can easily get to the point where you have like 250, 300 million of debt outstanding. That debt service is going to be, it's going to crush. So my point is, yes, the residential exemption is one tool. You also have to look at cutting back discretionary spending, and I think you should start that stuff now because you can pay it forward. A small cut today is going to eliminate or save you from larger cuts when the rate goes crazy and then you're in there with a meat cleaver instead of a scalpel. I think Carol has it 100% right. You just keep it at the 5% right now until you start see these wastewater costs start bleeding into the tax base. Because again, what I don't think is a great idea is to give these people some tax relief or even a tax cut and then take it back from them in another 2 or 3 years. I think that's just silly. But again, that's because we don't have a plan that looks at this thing holistically. We just transact ourselves to death.
Thank you. All right. Dave, you prepare all that too?
I did. I understand the point. He articulated the point very well. I do feel more comfortable, if we're going to take a modest and more incremental approach, I would support myself. I would encourage going after the 10%, so it's a minimal increase, and it offers, a slight decrease in spending because, the cost of living is going up while we're trying to mitigate the tax increases. So, I mean, with all those things considered, I'd like to take another step forward and another bite at the apple and do the 10 if we're not going to do the 15.
Okay, thank you, David.
I also think it's important to acknowledge that as we're talking about paying back loans and bonds, we start paying those back when projects are completed. And it's, I believe, a year to 18 months after the completion of a project. Is that correct? So these loans and bonds aren't coming due right away. And they won't all be coming due within the next few years. I just think that's important for us to think about. And I would also support 10%.
I motion for 5%, to
I'll
keep it the
second
same.
that for 5%.
All right, so we have a motion and we have a second to retain the residential tax exemption at 5%. Any discussion?
Have you closed the public hearing yet?
Oh,
Oh.
no, I'm sorry.
My
I
bad.
make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Can you have more public comment?
Oh,
Yes?
yes. Sorry about that, you're hiding back there.
Thank you. Well, a lot of what I was going to say is redundant, so I won't go over it. But basically, this is a progressive tax. It makes the taxes in Mashpee more progressive. And speaking as someone who will benefit from an increased residential tax exemption, I would urge the select board members to support the tax exemption at a rate that will make a better difference. I mean, I appreciate what we got last year, but I look at all these other towns, like Provincetown, which has 35%, Barnstable 20%, and there are 16 additional towns that all have exemptions, most of which are more than Mashpee's. I don't see, if they found solutions, why can't Mashpee? I don't think we're really looking at all the possibilities here. And I know that Provincetown did petition the legislature to get a change. I think we should do the same in terms of capping the people who are eligible for exemption at a reasonable rate. I mean, $900,000 for a home is really quite, you know, it's staggering when you realize that that's the median home or the average home value. I'm going to take my mask off, I'm sorry. In Mashpee, that is really quite incredible. And if we want to keep the character of this town, we have to do something to keep the kind of people, to keep our residents here, like me. Maybe you don't want to keep me, I don't know. But I think we need to really look at how we can do this. And I understand the overlay question. I don't have a magic solution, but I think we really have to look at how you help the people who are not living in $900,000 houses or anywhere close to that. And to do that, you would have to go to a 10% at least. I mean, maybe we should figure out how all these other towns in Massachusetts did it. They're not necessarily smarter than Mashpee. I mean, we should be able to find a solution. And some of the towns that have the exemption are Cambridge, Chelsea, Waltham. I mean, they're towns with a significant rental population. Well, how are they managing? We need to really look at this and not jump into staying the same or going higher until we figure out exactly what's going on and what are our choices. I'm just not happy looking at the situation the way it is. And I think if we're attacking the problem of affordable housing, this is something we can do that's easy. We don't have to buy land, we don't have to build anything. We can just provide some relief to people who need it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Just, all right, so.
A motion
we
to
good?
close the public hearing.
Second.
I just don't know if there's anybody else.
I don't think so.
I'm on the list, I defer.
Okay, thank you.
A motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
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 My motion is to leave it the same, 5%.
And
I'll second that motion.
And Tom has a second. So under discussion, just to clarify, Joe, if I'm reading this correctly, under the 5%, if we're retaining it the same, the largest group of owners, of property owners, their house is valued between 501 and 600,000, correct?
Right?
Yes.
And their savings, retaining, leaving it at 5%. Is that correct? Is, the savings is $204?
Hold on one second. What does it say?
You're correct.
Yes.
Yes.
That is correct.
That is
So,
correct.
by retaining, leaving it at 5% with no change, there's a savings to the residents of $204 for this coming tax.
In that particular strata, yes.
Correct. And and again, I just picked that the most households is 589, I believe.
589 properties.
So, and everyone, lower than that, it actually, there's a bigger increase,
Yes.
a decrease.
Right.
So as low as as much as $226, a decrease in taxes.
Right.
A lot of what I heard, and again, this is very tough up here to think about the pros and cons and the whole thing. But we got a freight train coming, and it's wastewater. And we probably will need to address this, but looking at that, and looking at the motion that's before us, there's a first and a second. If we retain it the same, there's a decrease in taxes to the people that are in need, leaving it the same.
Point of order, I don't think you have a first and second, do you?
Yes,
After you close the hearing?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So that was my discussion. Anybody else? David, Michaela, anybody? Tom, any kind of discussion? If not?
I think the way you just framed it, though, I don't know, it sounded different than what I've been hearing. Like that it's a decrease of $204 if we keep it the same.
Yeah, so David, let me just clarify.
From what I'm hearing, it's going, you're going to see, the people that have already signed up for the residential exemption are still going to see a modest increase of $200 and some odd dollars this year if we were to keep it the same. It's a modest increase, but it's still an increase. The way you just explained it was that they were going to realize a $204 decrease.
No, so David, so the Mashpee residents, full-time residents,
They're getting a reduction.
will get a reduction in taxes. And it ranges anywhere between $226 and, at a house of $700,000, it's a reduction of $197, and that's if we retain the 5%.
It's not a further reduction, that's the whole of the reduction.
That's what I'm trying to clarify.
So there is a reduction. It's a reduction in their taxes, if we retain the 5% and the motion that's on the table right now. I just want to make sure everyone's clear, because, again, we're looking at a lot of spreadsheets, and it's very easy to to grab the wrong sheet. and look at-
It's a reduction compared to if we don't adopt it.
Compared to if we have no redundant exemption.
If you voted not to adopt a residential exemption,
Right.
that's the delta, that's the difference, the 197.
Or not to re-adopt.
Correct.
Correct, okay.
Because each year is a separate
Right.
snapshot, I
Right.
guess.
Clean slate.
Yes.
Got it.
Okay.
Everybody? Okay, call to vote. Michaela?
No.
Tom?
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
David?
No.
And I'm a yes.
Majority has it, okay. Thank you.
3-2.
It's tough stuff, appreciate all of you.
It is tough
Yeah.
stuff.
It's a difficult.
It
It
is
is.
difficult. Thank you, guys. You're welcome.
Discussion and approval of Wacoit Bay intermunicipal agreement between the towns of Mashpee, Falmouth, and Sandwich.
Okay, thank you.
Kayla?
And I know you all have a copy of the agreement. We had a very, very productive meeting last Wednesday, November 8th, with people from, representatives from Falmouth and Sandwich, the town manager, the director of natural resources, and I were there from Mashpee. People were very favorable towards the agreement. The Falmouth town manager was unfortunately not able to make the meeting, and so the Falmouth representatives felt more comfortable bringing that back to him and then coming back to us. So I won't ask us to vote on it until we see if there are any suggested changes. We're meeting again on December 13th, and I hope that I can bring it back to you right after that.
Okay, great. Public comment? With the timer, no? Oh, thank you.
All right, I covered most of what I was going to say in my little spiel on the residential exemption. But I guess, yeah, no, I guess that's kind of it. But can we get a copy of what was distributed? Okay, I think not everything that you guys were looking at was in the package. Am I missing something?
There was that last,
Thing.
there was
Yes.
one
Yeah, I
spreadsheet.
mean,
Yes.
yeah, again, so if you could just either put it in the package and I'll pull it down again, or if you could just send it
Yes.
to me, that would be
I
great.
think there was a typo.
Well, I don't care about the typos, that's no big deal.
Well, I'm
But,
not,
okay, again, and you got that letter I
okay.
sent you, right? I mean,
Yes.
and again, too, the biggest thing is, I sat here when I first started being, I don't know what I am, public pain in the ass. But, I said, I just don't understand how you guys make decisions. And again, we make every decision in isolation. All of these things are related. You don't get affordable housing if you don't have wastewater treatment because you need more density. Part of affordable housing is real estate taxes. I mean, it's all kind of related. You kind of need a plan and you got to relate one to the other. So again, too, and that's why I think we struggle whenever we have this kind of thing where, every decision we make is a clean sheet of paper, and because we don't have an overall idea of where we're headed, there's no context to make that decision. So, again, I would do that. And also, he's gone now, but, I understand that there was outreach to try to communicate and get people, because you got about half of them, right? There's about 4,000 single-family homes. He's got 2,400. He's got about half the people. Whatever he's doing ain't working. I mean, so I get he's trying, but, he may need some help and, try something else to get that thing. And I'm not a municipal accountant, so how am I doing, Wayne? 40 seconds. I think this overlay thing is a red herring. The way I understand it, okay, this residential exemption pushes the piles of sand around. It doesn't change the aggregate number. I get what he's saying about the overlay. If more people come in, he has to fund it. And again, Dawn's gone too. And I'm sure there's some debits and credits, but I think it works itself out in a year or two. Long term, it doesn't impact anything. So, I mean, I wouldn't get hung up on the overlay thing. And the only other thing, if it is the way I think it works, is sock a few bucks away in good years. And so when you do get a lot of people showing up, you got the money to cover it. I mean, this isn't rocket science.
Marjorie, you all set? Okay.
Yes.
Susan? You're passing. Mary? Sorry, just got the list of order.
I had more information than you did. Mary Wagon of Shumet Road. And I just want to say that I love community development block grants. I've worked in them 15 plus years. If you do go forward and accept the volunteer work of residents, what I would recommend is a committee be formed, some type of committee that somebody who is elected could sit on, and form a citizens-based CDBG committee that can go after the CDBG funds for Mashpee. The largest use of CDBG funds, and it's affordable housing, it's mostly affordable housing that benefits low and moderate income households. You can use it for public services like Meals on Wheels, septic pumping, child care vouchers, rental assistance, and blight removal. But the vast majority of the money is used for home ownership and rental repairs and rehabilitation. It's a huge program nationwide. Unfortunately, Mashpee is not an entitlement community, so you have to apply to the state every year, and it's competitive. But compared to entitlement communities that get this automatically in Massachusetts, you can get like 10 times the amount. I mean, you can get millions of dollars coming into your community in this 5-year plans. And again, the number one use is housing rehabilitation. But for low and moderate income households, like homeowners who are connecting to sewers, you can do infrastructure work. So you can help with either grants or loans to low, moderate income homeowners connect to the upcoming sewer system. So I'd love to help out with that in any way. Maybe we can find another municipal group that would apply for your CDBG funds for you for a fee. So it's not just consultants that do this, but sometimes municipalities help other municipalities. So I'm available. Thank you.
Could I, Mr. Chair,
Mr. Collins, yes.
I know we generally don't respond
yes.
to public comments, but I would like to make an exception. I'm just curious, Mary, whether or not when you refer to the committee, you're referring to creating a working group or a public body?
Correct. Something that our charter would allow, right? I think that the town manager has some authority in assembling working groups.
So you're talking about like an ad hoc committee that isn't necessarily going to be subject to open meeting?
However that is, I don't care either way. But
Okay. That was
But
it.
with a purpose, it could be an ad hoc with a purpose. Some communities have a CDBG community, a CDBG committee, because there's public surveys and input and hearings you have to hold. Sometimes it's just a staff person.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
Communication.
All right.
Register.
Discussion and approval, new business, discussion and approval of the following resignations. Mashpee Community Garden Advisory Committee, Virginia Schaffenberg, expires June 30th, 2024.
A
Unfortunate.
motion to accept her resignation with regret and a letter, please.
I'll second that.
An amazing letter.
Thank you for your dedication.
All right, so I have a motion, second. All in favor?
Yes.
Kayla?
Yes.
Yes.
David?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Council on Aging, Merrill Blum, term expires June 30th, 2026.
Also with regret on the
Second.
Council of Aging. with a
Second.
letter.
First and second, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
David?
Americans with Disabilities.
Americans with Disabilities Act Committee, ADA, Merrill Blum, also, term expires June 30th, 2024.
Also with regret.
Second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for your service.
Yes, yes, and again, Merrill's been doing that for a long time as well. And David?
Yes.
I think that was it for
Now
that.
appointments.
Interviews, discussions, and possible approval of the following appointments. Council on Aging, Christine Peralt. Term
here.
expires June 30th, 2026. Hey, Christine,
Hi, good evening.
how are you?
I am very well, thank you.
Do you mind just giving us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in the position?
Okay, well, I read through the mission statement for the Council on Aging, and it seemed to be in keeping with my philosophy for aging in place and living one's best life. I'm a health and wellness coach, and I also am a registered nurse with a graduate degree in community health nursing. I volunteered for the last year and a half over at the Council of Aging teaching an osteoporosis exercise class, so I'm quite familiar with the facilities, and I offer that as a free service to the community, and anyone is invited to attend, female, male, whatever. I now have time to reach out to my community because I'm semi-retired, and I thought this might be a good fit for me, and I have a strong knowledge base in wellness and planning programs and being part of programs that are of benefit to senior citizens.
Great.
Perfect. You do sound like a good match.
Yeah. Thank you for your interest.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Sounds like you'll enjoy it.
Questions?
Oh, it's great. Yeah.
Looks like the application, everything is, all rules were followed.
And it's an extraordinary resume.
Thank you.
We're lucky to have you.
Can I have a motion for
A
approval?
motion to approve Christine, no.
We'll second that motion.
All right, we have a first and second to approve Christine Peralt.
Yes.
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 And David.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy.
Appreciate
you.
it.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks.
Historical Commission, Leonard Hocknet. Term expires June 30th, 2024.
So moved.
How are you tonight?
Pretty well, thank you.
Good.
You mind just giving us a just a quick explanation of why you're interested in joining the committee.
Yeah, well, I was born right here in Mashpee. Excuse me. Born here in Mashpee. Been here all my life, basically. I'm a part of the history, perhaps. Because I was born like 2 months before the invasion of Normandy, so if you go up 5 years from then, I remember things from that point on. So I know a lot about Mashpee, you know, and as I matured, I learned more and more about the town and that I've been told, and also I just love the town. I went to school, elementary school here in Mashpee. As a matter of fact, this building here was the school.
Right?
You know, Samuel G. Davis.
Yeah.
And 1 through 8 grades, and then I went to Falmouth, to Lawrence High in Falmouth, graduated from that, and went into the military for 3 years in the Army, and while in the Army, I went to school in Alabama for missile electronics, and they sent me to Europe. I was in Italy for 2 years, and then I came back here, and I went to work for I was in the census, as a matter of fact, of 90, assistant manager in Hyannis, and I went to work for the National Cemetery up here on the base. I retired from there, as well as before that I retired from the Postal Service for 20 years as a letter carrier. So that's basically my life. And as I said, I know a lot about the town. Always, when I was away from here, I always come back and check things out. And so I'm really interested in the history of it, making sure that it's accurate as far as I know from living it. And I'm just interested in the progress in the public finding out about Mashpee, the history. And it's a very, very deep history, I think. And I consider myself as I lived the history, and now I'm still living it. So I'm interested in that historical commission. I just thought that'd be a good way of joining in the town. So
I think you'll be a great asset to the
Absolutely.
historical committee.
thank you.
Well, thank you for your interest, and obviously, you're a perfect fit for the commission, without a doubt.
I would agree.
Anybody have any other questions?
No, just an incredible fit, and thank you so much for applying.
Thank you.
A motion to approve.
Motion to appoint Leonard Parkman to the Historical Commission, term to expire June 30th, 2024.
Second.
All right, I have a first and second. Any discussion? Not hearing any?
No.
Kayla?
Yes.
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 David?
Yes.
And I am a yes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank
Welcome
you.
aboard. Thanks, Rich. All right, Environmental Oversight Committee, Alexandra Zolo
She's not here.
is not here, so I don't know, and this is,
We can put her on at our next meeting.
Dave, do you want to speak to this, or?
I can speak to that. Alex, some communication got crossed. Alex, I didn't realize Alex wasn't going to be in town. She's actually on vacation. I believe I was supposed to put it forward on a previous meeting, and forgot to do so. We needed to get the approval and votes at our EOC meeting, which got postponed, so I think that was the delay in moving it forward prior to this meeting. It was a unanimous decision by the members of the environmental oversight supporting and endorsing the select board final approval and appointment. And I didn't know, if the board didn't feel comfortable in appointing her, then I would move to do so. But if the board felt like they wanted the opportunity to interview, I'd respect the decision there as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm indifferent as far as, it could go either way. I mean, the downfall is I don't know who, I've never met her before, so.
I think we moved forward at our last meeting on somebody who could not come.
We have, that's what I'm
Okay.
saying, so I'm not, like I said,
But it
I'm,
was somebody that we knew that had been on another committee.
I'm not sure, but her resume is incredible. Her time on the Conservation Commission is really important, so she knows the community well. And I'm looking at the, recommendations, which are all 5, so they're excellent. And the recommendations, we had Mr. Whedon and also the Director of Natural Resources. I would be comfortable in moving forward.
David, quick question. Are you meeting again prior to our next selectmen's meeting?
I'd have to look at our.
You could do it at the next meeting. That would work.
Well, that's what I'm saying, if it's before, if our selectmen's meeting is prior to your next meeting, then then
I'd
it's,
love to have it show up.
we can just,
November 27th. The EOC meets next on November 27th.
So there's no,
And we meet the 20th.
okay, so,
So we
and we
can-
meet the 20th, so David, if your meeting's the 27th, we meet the week before, so would you be okay with just, Michaela?
I'm
Okay?
fine with that, yes,
That
of
works?
course, yes.
Then they're not even going to miss a meeting. And we
That'd be
can
great.
meet
Yep,
them, follow the
absolutely.
process.
Yep, I'm fine with that.
So we'll put this off till, on the agenda for the 20th.
Yep.
Sound good?
Much better. I like that. I feel more comfortable.
I'm good with that.
All right. Sounds great. Additional topics for,
Discussion approval of January and select board meetings.
oh, yeah, I think, well, liaison reports? Oh, wait, I'm sorry, that's right, okay.
The select board meeting schedule.
Any questions with the dates, schedule?
No, I haven't looked at it that far.
I'm out of the country for one of these, but
A motion to approve January through June select board meeting schedule, subject to change.
Yes.
Second that motion.
Thanks, Carol. Tom? So I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
yes.
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 Yes. Unanimous.
Now your liaison.
Oh, that's, yeah, okay. Liaison reports?
I do.
Sure.
The planning board is in receipt of a draft of the LCP, which they'll begin discussing on Wednesday night. They'll be soliciting public comment throughout. And also, we received a letter of support to the Mass DEP. I feel like we speak in acronyms, for our IUP. Supporting that to the state, which supports that everything in our IUP meets the 208 plan. So our IUP, the intended use project. So that came in today.
Okay. Any other liaison reports?
I'm good.
Before I actually get back to additional topics, and this could be just for an agenda topic for next meeting, Mr. Collins, can we put on, do we discuss the Block Grant Citizen Committee further, and also talk about the home rule resident exemption process for topics for the next meeting.
That's a good one.
Is everybody good with that?
I am, there were two issues on that, I believe. I think the first one was with regard to rentals, and the second one was in regard to working with the legislators about a cap, if that's what we were interested
Oh,
in
if we
doing.
could, I guess we can,
So there are two things connected to that.
well, yeah, I think it's actually probably a whole separate question about making a cap that right now is in place, or that there can't be one. So I guess that would be a discussion for, our senator or state rep.
Do you want to discuss what that content is going to consist of, or do you want me to invite them in at the next meeting?
I think what I'd like to do is see if we can maybe ask them the question to see if, because I don't want them to come in and just
Not
say,
know the
we
question.
can't do anything. If we
Okay.
can discuss the question with them to say, is this worth, I don't want to come in and say, yeah, it's the law, and they walk out the door and we just,
Okay,
we have
so
nothing to talk
we won't
about.
invite them into the next meeting, but we'll have some information for you.
That's it. Just, I appreciate that. Jump back down to water quality.
Just the letter of support for our intended use project is in, so that's all I have.
And everyone has the ballot question of the override regarding, the phase 2 engineering. So hopefully people are going to support that.
Yes, and I'd like to thank the town manager for writing a letter clarifying that question. I think that was really important for residents to see.
Yep. Well done. Town manager updates.
The town has a shortage of snowplow contractors, so if anybody knows of anyone who wishes to plow for the town, please contact us.
I have to tell you, a lot of the towns are having the same problem because they're putting it out.
That is what I've been told.
Everyone's got those bounties
And I
going
don't know
around.
if it's plow drivers having given up their vehicles or their plows after last winter where we had little to no snow, or whether it's insurance or what it is. But we are
We're still
looking
offering
for snowplow contractors with the bonus that you approved. So if anybody knows of anyone that is interested, please have them contact us. As a reminder, town offices will be closed Thursday and Friday, November 23rd and 24th for the Thanksgiving break. Early voting is taking place all week, right outside here, in the lobby of Town Hall. As a reminder, it is not occurring at the various precincts. It is occurring right here at Town Hall, and that's early voting. Obviously, the day of voting, there will be the precinct locations, which I articulated in the message that I recently sent out.
Good point.
I do encourage anybody that has any questions relative to the ballot question to read my message. I'm not going to read the whole thing right now, but it is posted online. I think it's been circulated in various locations, and if anybody would like a copy, all they got to do is contact us if they don't want to go online and get it. Budget review is scheduled for December 11th, 12th, and 14th. If any of you are interested in attending those, I can't have a quorum because it's not an open meeting, but I can have the liaisons of the respective department there and possibly one other. And that's all I have.
All right. Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Not seeing any?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.